Jefferson said that in matters of taste, go with the flow, but with matters of principle, stand like a rock. Unfortunately, too many tech leaders nowadays don't even understand the concept of standing like a rock. Sometimes you have to learn when to put your foot down. You have to learn where confrontation is not that bad, and actually sometimes what you fear as confrontation is just a conversation and everything's fine. In this video, we'll be talking exactly about how you as a tech leader can learn how to grow a spine, know when you have to put your foot down, and how to do so effectively in a way that doesn't position you as an argumentative CTO, but as an effective tech leader and part of the executive team. By the way, if you're new here, hi, I'm Aviv Ben-Yosef. I'm a tech executive coach and consultant, and I help people ensure that they don't waste their lives leading mediocre teams. Such mediocre teams often are exactly those where, with lack of proper leadership, end up doing things that are not the right things, end up having no real boundaries because no one sets them up correctly. Let's talk about how you will do that effectively, just so you become the leader your team deserves and your team keeps growing. First, there's the no-op trap. If you've ever learned assembly, I know there was a bit ago, there was that no-op, the operation that's actually nothing. It's just a way to waste a cycle, something that doesn't have any impact whatsoever. Too many tech leaders that I see nowadays are exactly that. Yes, you don't want to be the CT no, and I have a video about the CT no, which is the CTO that just argumentative for argumentative sake. The one that always says, no, not possible, can do that, more time, more people, more budget, whatever. Of course, we do not want to be positioned that way. But when you take it too far and you just become the mirror image of the CT no, you become a no-op leader because you're just going to say yes to everything. All requests just pass through you like a pipe. And that means, in both cases, your answer, your impact, or your opinion is no, be it if you always say no and if you always say yes. When we know what you're going to be doing, we don't need you. You're becoming redundant. Leadership is precisely about knowing when we want to exert our place and our responsibility in order to ensure that the right decisions are being made, when to speak up and voice up and object something, and when you actually agree with it, or even if you don't agree, you're just going to disagree and commit. This is precisely what leadership is about. Otherwise, you're just, getting orders and following through. Sometimes there is a misread that happens with many tech leaders, and that is reading every sort of pushback, every conversation that's not just saying, oh yeah, sure, as confrontation. I know that many people are adverse to confrontation. I am as well. So yeah, I get you. I don't like, I never like any sort of arguments. And yet, that does not mean that any time that you don't agree about something, you're going into confrontation. Just because you're telling people something that's not yes, does not mean that there's an argument going on. Does not mean that you're being argumentative. And I'm saying that because, first of all, you have to ensure that when you're looking at things, when you're assessing reality, you're not seeing more confrontation than there actually is. You're not interpreting any pushback as that. Most of the cases, most of the things we're covering here are when you just want to say, I'm not sure about X, have you considered Y, maybe we can do it this way. That's not confrontation. That's effectively collaborating with people to find the best way to approach a problem. That's not you saying we're not going to be doing that, but you working together with the other parties in order to find the best solution. That's actually a good thing. That's, again, collaborative. That's helping them find the best way. If someone comes to me and says, hey, your idea, I understand what you want to achieve, but I think you missed that pitfall. And maybe we can do it this way or that way. And have you considered that? That's actually someone trying to help me reach my objective. And that's the mindset that you need to have. You're not trying to push back on everything. That's the CT no mindset, where we're seeing people who are like, they have like the Captain America shield. They're trying to shield their team from any incoming requests unless they have to do it. No, of course not. You want to be in a position where we collaborate, work together, get requests, and change them, shape them, massage them into the right thing, the thing that makes sense for our team. And yet, when we do that, we have to learn when we're actually just conversing as opposed to real pushback, real confrontation that might require a different way of communicating, and also with some people require some prep ahead of time to ensure that you're entering the situation in a way that doesn't leave you feeling later overwhelmed, burned out, or frustrated. The real yardstick, the thing that you need to have in mind when you're thinking about your progress and how you're viewed, is not to aim to have everyone like you. I know it's nice. It's always nicer when people like you as opposed to not like you. But just because you are not being, again, someone's yes person, saying yes to everyone, does not mean that you are not doing your job well. You should not aim to just please everyone. Your yardstick should also not be to say no enough so you feel like you're exerting your authority. You're making people see that you're there. We're not saying no as an end. We're saying no as a means to an end. And therefore, your yardstick should revolve around, am I, in general, involved in those decisions? Is my opinion heard and considered? Is the team doing what I think in general the right thing? And in general, are we on the right track? It's not like your aim should be that each and every decision will always be exactly what you want it to be. No, you're not the CEO. And even CEOs don't always get what they want. So that's just not possible in any team that's bigger than one. And still, even if you're not getting everything you want to ensure that in general, you see the alignment. You see that you're heard. You see that you have an impact on things so that in general, things are more like you think makes sense than not, and that you understand things. So even if at the beginning you said no or you pushed back, maybe you learned something. Maybe you got smarter in the process, and therefore there was no need to change things all that much. So that in general, you just see a positive trend. Things are improving. Of course, we'd rather things to be improving faster rather than slower, but as long as things are improving, you're already doing pretty well. So have that as your yardstick for being an effective leader and for the health of your team, not just delivering, but in general, we're delivering the right things in a way that you feel is sustainable, improving, getting better, healthy for the team, so that you are proud of what you're creating. You're not wasting your career leading a team in a way that you're going to look back at and feel bad about. Like after I eat a bag of chips and I'm like, oh, why did I do that? Here are a few things to consider as you're learning how to grow your spine. A few little tools and mindset that are really helpful, I think, as you're starting to push back when needed. First is choosing your battles. Of course, sometimes you see something and you realize, okay, it's just not worth it. This is not about running away from confrontation. It's about realizing that, yes, sometimes your disagreement is about something that you see as maybe not being ideal, maybe you think there's a better way around it, but at the end of the day, it's not that big of an issue either way. It can be fine. So you're just deciding not to fight on that, die on that hill. That's perfectly fine. But when you see something and you feel like, okay, this is bad, this cannot be like that, then you put the foot down. Then you're clear about your thinking. Second, understand that this is, again, about what we want to achieve, not as a tool. It's not like we have this hammer of saying, no, I'm going to be knowing everything all around. That's not the purpose. The purpose is to ensure that the right things are being done. So when you're saying no, when you're pushing back, always think about what are you actually trying to achieve? What is the positive end here? What improvement or better solution you're pushing for? I know that it's a lot easier to just say no, but we have to be proactive here and try to come up with where we're actually trying to take things. So when you're saying no, What are you trying to achieve? And hopefully it's not just sticking your head in the sand and trying not to have anything change, but see where you actually believe things ought to be headed. Disagree like a peer. It's important that you don't say that someone is stupid for having suggested something, be against their opinion in a way that makes them feel humiliated, or completely run over any shot of doing something differently just because you disagree. Again, these are your peers, and even if we're talking about someone reporting to you, you have to do this from a way that's respectful, that people can understand, that allows them to counteract, to say what they think, to have a healthy discussion, not get people all locked up and feel like there's no use to speaking with you. It's very, very important, because that means that you're not going into confrontation. It allows for healthy conversations, and it means that in the long term, people will listen to you. When you immediately push back in a way that's seen as violent, people will stop listening to you. Even if what you're saying is, at the end true, they will just shut down and won't listen to whatever you have to say. Then we have boundaries. I have an article about it, I'll link to it in the video description, which is about how we sometimes train the company to overwhelm us, to keep putting more and more load on us. And we have to learn where to set our boundaries. When you're looking at things, and this relates to choosing your battles, you want to understand whether what you're being asked, and also connects to the first phrase here, the Jefferson quote. Are you seeing something where you're looking at it, okay, this is just not the sort of organization I'm going to lead. This is not what my team ought to be doing. I do not agree to have my team work weekends just because the CEO wants them to work more. We'll work, an all-nighter just because it's crucial, not because the CEO can ask for it. That's the sort of thing where you want to decide what's your principle, what's important, and then stick to it. We have to learn that and know what's true, what's important for our own sake, in order to be those leaders with a healthy spine. You cannot just try to wing it, to just, whenever comes across, you're deciding, okay, do I want to do it or not? You need to put in some thinking about, what do I think is important? Why am I doing what I'm doing? What sort of team do I want to lead at the end of the day? What do I want my team to have? What do I want my peers to think? And how am I getting there? And lastly, again, don't confuse the yardstick. Your yardstick should be about getting better decisions, moving forward effectively, not about being liked at the end of the day. That's a nice to have, definitely not a must have. And therefore, if at the end of a discussion, your peer, whoever you talk to, is not pleased, not happy because you ended up changing their direction a bit, or you pushed back a bit on the scope, that does not mean that you did something bad. Especially if at the end of the day you genuinely believe that what you got to, the plan, the agreement, etc., is the right one. And vice versa, don't get the wrong yardstick of you always having to have the final say. Don't use that muscle that many CTOs have, because we have our hand on the faucet and we can just turn it off, turn the valve off and say, okay, nothing's coming out because I don't agree with your plan, with the way of doing that. No, again, we're not using our power for the sake of using power. We're doing it because we want to get the right solutions. We want to have the company move in the right direction. And to sum up this video, I want you to, as always, I'm trying to always have something that is actionable. So don't just think about this, but I want you to look at your week. Look where you've been avoiding confrontation recently. What sort of decision you feel is not being made correctly, wrong. Maybe you need to be clear about your borders, your boundaries, what needs to be done. And once you've found it, take a second, compose your thoughts. Why is this important? What do you want to achieve? What's the right solution? What are your thoughts? What are the trade-offs that you're suggesting? How can you show this, demonstrate your thinking? Who needs to be involved? Maybe you can get an ally, because maybe the CMO will actually care about this and will be on your side. Find how you can make your case, the people to make the case to, and do it. When needed, put your foot down. I always think about that bit from Inside Out, if you watched it, the foot is down, the foot is down. You know, sometimes that's just what we ought to be doing. And if you need any help with that, my email's in the video description, and I'm here to help ensure that you grow your spine. I'm a chiropractic for tech leaders when needed. That's it. If you found this useful, please like and subscribe. It really helps. If you have any questions or comments, let me know in the comments or in my email. That's in the video description, as I said, and I'll see you here in the next video. Ciao.